Hello and welcome back to Geek and Speak, the Geek and Seek podcast. Today, we're going to be going through Steven's Commander decks, talking a little bit about them, ranking them, talking about what some of our favorite ones are, and maybe some that were like, please never play that again, Steven. Joined with me is Steven himself. Steven, how's it going, man?
Hi. It's going all right, I guess.
Good.
Kind of getting
Yeah.
over a cold, but besides that, I'm good.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I haven't really been sick, but my daughter's been sick for a couple of days, kind of. So it's
No,
been
that
real
doesn't
fun
make me
over
feel
here. Yeah.
better at all.
uh, and then hi, I'm your host Morgan. It's just going to be the two of us, the two bros, hanging out today. Jason is. I don't know what Jason's doing, and Preston's internet died about 10 minutes before we had to record. So it's just going to be the two of us. So everyone, wish Steven a happy birthday in the comments, and we will be talking about his commander decks today. But before we do that, if you would like to support the show, you can always just hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet. Hit like on this video. Leave a helpful comment or some good feedback. Check out some of our other videos. All the stuff that helps boost us in the YouTube stupid algorithm. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can head over to patreon.com/geekandseekyoutube and help us out there. As far as news goes, hey, Steven, this is actually timing out pretty good with having you specifically on the podcast because this is only, the second time you've been on in the last year or so. So July 5th is the next Universes Beyond set. It's going to be a modern legal 7-pack boosters, oh my God, of Assassin's Creed. All right, we got a mix of new cards, some reprints. But Steven, you've played a few of the Assassin's Creed games. Is there anything specific that you're excited about, or that you hope that they do? Maybe a specific character or a moment that would be cool to get highlighted on a card?
Well, I haven't played that many of the Assassin's Creed games, like two.
That's more than
But
me. I played
from
one.
from from what I've played, I've enjoyed it. By no means are they my favorite video games, but they're good. Uh, I think the idea of the Assassin's Creed, um, in general is pretty cool with the universes beyond. So I haven't looked into it, but I'm interested to see like um what like the art will look like.
Mhm.
Um
Yeah, we haven't
or
seen
like
too
what
many of the cards yet. Only a handful of the cards have been released so far, but it'll be cool.
I think it'll be interesting, but compared to some of the other universes beyond, it's like I mean, it's cool, but
What's your favorite one? Has it been Lord of the Rings, or has there been another Universes Beyond that you liked better?
uh I ended up liking Fallout a lot.
Really? Yeah.
But I'd probably say Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
that's probably my favorite. Yeah.
It's probably Lord of the Rings for me too. I was also really into Warhammer. That was like the first like real Universes Beyond that they did. And I know that like maybe those aren't like the best commander precons or anything, but they were still pretty good. They were pretty cool, and I like a lot of the individual cards and stuff from those decks. So all right, and now we're heading into our comment of the week. We have two because we got to make up for me forgetting to do it last week. Sorry, boys. So this one is from Witiful434. This was on the podcast episode from a couple weeks ago where we were talking about how to build green decks in Commander. He says, fun discussion, neat series you guys have here. Looking forward to seeing more, boys. Thanks, man. Appreciate it, especially because uh that episode didn't really do very well. So the fact that, you enjoyed it, it's nice. But Steven, comment number 2, this one you should appreciate. This one is from the video I released. I think it's our newest video at the time you're seeing this. The Modern Horizons 3 a commander set. And this comment is from Sean the Saiyan, who says Yu-Gi-Oh has a new set. Well said, Sean. Well said.
Sean, you suck.
Sean's one of our longtime friends. We've known him since well, I probably met him when I was in preschool, and he did a lot of Geek and Seek stuff with us back in the early days. And he has his own channel now where he talks about One Piece, the card game, and stuff like that. So if you're into that, go check out his channel. And then hopefully we can do some crossover videos at some point, either me over on his channel or him over here for a couple other videos. I will say though, he's kind of onto something with saying Yu-Gi-Oh has a new set, because Modern Horizons keeps making these free spells, and I'm like, well, now it just kind of feels like Yu-Gi-Oh, because you don't have resources in Yu-Gi-Oh. But thanks, Sean. We kind of miss you, kind of.
Kind of.
All right, Steven, we're going to be talking about your commander decks. I'm going to be giving you some feedback on what I like and don't like about them. And Steven, you're going to say who the commander is, what the general theme of the deck is, maybe tell us one or two of the really important cards, all of that. We will go hopefully through all of them. But if we're pushing too late on time, we'll just make sure that we get a couple of the really important ones out of the way first. And Steven, this says you have 12 decks apparently. What are some common themes that you might see across a lot of your decks? Either are there certain kinds of cards that you see you playing a lot of, or anything like that? Any recurring themes in your deck building?
I mean, I do tend to play green a lot, but that's because it's my favorite color. And so I think just a lot of the commander green staple cards.
A lot of
Like I tend to
cultivates
play
and
those. Sure, heroic intervention,
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Right on, right on. Yeah, I remember when we did the season wrap up video in season one for our Commander gameplay series. You were like, I think you played 11 games and in 9 of them you played green or something like that. It was a lot more even in
From
season
from
2, but
yeah, uh-huh.
yeah. All right, Steven, why don't you go ahead and walk us through your first deck?
So I have Adrix and Nev. We have seen Adrix and Nev on the channel or I guess twice,
We've seen
because
it twice.
yeah, when we played with my decks.
Yeah.
Uh, I think was it Tommy who chose that deck?
Yes, Tommy played it.
Uh, so and then the other time was in our favorite commander decks, which I think is our most viewed video on the
It is.
channel as of now.
It is.
So it's a Simic deck. So,
It
Simic
do
be
be Simicking.
Simicking.
Yeah.
Um, Adrix just wants to create a lot of tokens. Adrix and Nev just wants to create a lot of tokens. That's pretty much the theme of the deck. For the most part, a lot of I'm just trying to create a lot of uh, tokens in different ways. I have like parallel lives in the deck, and
Double up your tokens.
yeah, what's the other one? Doubling season.
Yep.
I have both of those in that deck, and so stuff like that. I have a double major, which is I can just target Adrix and Nev, and then I'll have more token copies of Adrix and Nev, and then whenever I make more tokens, I create that many times however many Adrix and Nevs I have.
You know what would be
Uh,
absolute cancer is if we have a token episode of Upkeep and you like play that and Jason plays like the lease. That could be kind of bonkers. So where do you think that one sits as far as like power scale? Do you think that's one of your stronger decks, one of your medium decks, one of your weaker decks?
I
Is
think
it
it's
is it still your favorite deck? I know it was your favorite at the time that we did the favorite decks episode, but is it still your favorite deck?
I would still say it's within my top 3 favorite decks. I still like it a lot. I've definitely put a little more time and energy into that deck compared to some of the others I have. And I do think overall it's one of the more stronger decks I have. I would probably say it's within my top 5, maybe top 3 of my decks. I'm not sure exactly where I'd put it, but I think it's up there.
Yeah. And then where is it power level wise, you think, in relation to your other decks?
I'd say higher up, more powerful than most of my decks. Yeah.
Okay. So as someone who has played against this deck quite a bit, I will say that I have seen you get Rakdos charmed twice, I think, with it.
So
It's,
stupid.
it's so brilliant.
It's like my worst nightmare whenever I play a token deck. Same thing with when I play Chatterfang, and we'll get to that. But
Yeah. Yeah, so as someone who has played against this deck, I will say that Simic do be Simicking. And it feels bad because I feel like what happens a lot of the time is you either just run away with the game, or you start acting like you're going to run away with the game and people just team up on you and kill you really fast. So
That's
I think
exactly
that's,
what happened in the episode of Upkeep when I played it.
yeah.
Like
And then that
I
happened to
started
Tommy
like
when
kind of
he
doing
played it.
things. Yep. Yep. That's exactly that happens a lot. I
Is
agree
that
that
just a
that is
Simic
usually what
thing? I think it's
happens.
just a Simic thing.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But it's a cool deck. I don't mind playing against it every now and then. At this point, I feel like I haven't seen it in a while. So at this point,
I have not played it in a while. It has been a minute. Yeah.
yeah, you'll need to pull it back out. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. What deck do you want to highlight next?
I don't know. Let's just do alphabetical, I guess. So
Okay.
Adrix and Nev would have been first. So whatever's next.
Next would be Baba Lysaga.
Yeah, so that's a fun deck that Preston gave me when he made all the decks for the Christmas episode back in 2022, right?
Yes.
So uh and so I've just upgraded the deck beyond what he's done. I have put a few artifact creatures on the deck, but for the most part I did want to keep the theme of it being more of an enchantment creature deck just because I think that's more unique. Um so I've kind of still kept that theme. Um and there's a couple cards in the deck. I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head, but they're artifacts, and I can like tap them to turn other permanents into artifacts as well.
Oh,
So
like
then I
the
can just
liquid
turn it
metal
in.
torque.
I can't remember if that's what it's called, but it's something. Yeah. So you basically just turn an enchantment creature into an artifact as well, and then you only have to with Baba Saga, you only have to sacrifice that one permanent to get Baba Saga's ability rather than two or three. So that's pretty cool. And being able to do Baba Saga on other people's turns is really fun. Um, there's a few cards in the deck that I can play land cards from my graveyard. Those are pretty essential in the deck because I'm going to be sacrificing lands. So like I can't remember what any of the cards are. There's a couple creatures in the deck that allow me to do that.
It's like Ramanov Excavator. That's one of them, right? The one from like Power
Yeah,
Devastation.
yeah, and there's I think it's called a World Shaker. Like whenever it dies, you can return lands from your graveyard to the battlefield, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I might be wrong about the name of that card, but so that's a pretty good one in the deck also.
Yeah, so I actually really love seeing this deck. So we've seen it kind of three times on the show, right? Because you played it on the Christmas that White Elephant gift episode, right? For that Christmas episode a couple years ago.
Yep.
And then I think that's what Jason played when we played your decks, if I
Yeah,
remember
that's
correctly.
right.
And then I think, didn't you make a version of it for the Tiny Leaders episode?
Yes.
So we've kind of seen it three times on the show, but we've seen it a couple times since then, and it's quite a bit stronger than the last time we've seen it on the show because you've made a lot of those additions that you've said. I feel like it's a really powerful deck. Like you have these really big, scary turns. Something I've noticed though in playing against it, as cool as it is, and as much as I enjoy seeing it in action, how do you win with it?
I don't. I've never won with that deck. It's a fun deck to play, and like it's really cool, but I've never won like a game with that deck. I don't know really what more I need to do with that deck to win because it's like if you just kill my commander a few times, then I mean I don't know what else I'm going to do
Mm-hmm.
besides play just generically good Golgari stuff. So I mean,
I feel like I haven't ever looked into this, but surely there's like combos with Baba Saga, right? Like maybe they're kind of complicated. Maybe that's not reliable, but I don't know. I feel like that's something maybe worth considering if you want. Do you feel like this is one of your stronger decks, or do you feel like because it's never won, it can't be called one of your stronger decks?
no, absolutely not. No, it's definitely towards the bottom. It's never won a deck ever or a game ever, but it is a fun deck, and I do think it's potentially pretty powerful. At least with as it is now. No.
Okay. Yeah, and I enjoy seeing it. All right, so next up on your list, if we're gonna go in alphabetical order, is Brallin and Shabraz. I guess it
That's a
depends
fun
on if you
one.
say Brallin or Shabraz first, but
Well,
talk to us about this
alphabetically,
deck.
so Brallin. So I made the deck mainly just because at the time it was the only I didn't have a partner deck and I wanted to make one, but I also wanted to make something that was unique and different than some of the other decks that I'd made. And so I was like, I saw Brallin and Shabraz, and first of all, I love the idea of Brallin riding on Shabraz, a flying shark, but also uh just being able to just draw and discard a bunch of stuff, and it's just benefiting my commanders every time, and I'm dealing damage and I'm getting life every time I draw or discard a card, and it's really fun to play with, and it's won some games. We've seen it win on Freedom Week, which I think is just patriotic because
Because
it's
Jessica.
a it's because yeah, it's red, white, blue, so it's beautiful.
We've kind of seen it 3 times on the show, right? Because it was that you played on the partner episode, and when we did custom commanders, you made a new commander that was like Brallin and Shabraz put together, right? So we've kind of seen it 3 times.
Yeah, yeah, and it did not do good that partners game. I remember that it just was
I
not
remember
popping off like it
I
does.
spared your life.
Yeah,
I
I remember that. But I'd say for the most part, uh, assuming I get my mana, I think that deck does pretty well. Uh, and it is really fun to just draw, discard,
yeah, it
deal
is.
damage, gain life, swing out with my really big Brallin and Shabraz now.
They get huge. They get
Yeah, they
so
do.
big. I really like this deck. It has a lot of these like really big explosive turns where you're drawing and discarding a crazy amount of cards. I think your deck is unnecessarily scary because you have a lot of cards that technically have combos with them, but then you don't actually run the full combos. So like if you're playing like we know that, so it's not really a problem in our play group, but I can just imagine like you going with me to a Magicon or something, you play that and someone's like, "Oh, that's gotta go right now," or "Oh, it's time to kill Steven because he's about to combo off." So that would be kind of funny. Um I feel like this is like on the top half of your strength as far as your decks go.
I would say top half is probably, yeah, I'd probably say so. It's definitely not my strongest, but it's probably within top half. Yeah.
There is going to be a reoccurring theme that I actually, if you guys have seen our episodes that we did like this for Preston's decks and the episode we did this with Jason's decks, there were a couple decks that we talked about that we were like, oh, I hate seeing this deck, but I'll correct myself if we get to it. But I actually think I kind of like all of Steven's decks, so we might not have to worry about that necessarily today. Plus, yeah, no flying shark. And I'm glad at least
I
one
love
of the
playing
times
shark.
I'm glad at least one of the times it's shown up on the show, it's won. So that's nice.
Yeah.
All right, Steven, next up is Chatterfang. Tell us about this deck. Because the viewers haven't seen this one yet. It'll
No,
be
they haven't seen it.
they will see it. We have an episode where it'll come, but
Yep.
tell us about
Yep.
this deck.
I like squirrels. And so like getting to build a squirrel commander deck. And really like a lot of the cards in the deck aren't even squirrels. There are cards in the deck that kind of suck, but they're only in the deck just to be flavorful.
Yeah.
Uh but the idea is just to create a bunch of tokens, and then just whenever I create a token, I create that many tokens and also that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. So then I end up just creating a lot. And I've discovered with a lot of the cards in the deck, there are like a lot of different combos that you can do in the deck to
You
create
don't you
infinite
have like
squirrels,
don't you have like 3 infinite combos in the deck?
yeah, something like that. And the main card I need to put in the deck is that one green enchantment that gives all creatures haste. Because then if I create infinite squirrels, then I can just play that and win the game. Unless,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Uh so there's just a lot of stuff that just helps me create more tokens, I believe Doubling Season and Parallel Lives are in the deck as well.
I just thought of this card when you said I need to give my stuff haste. Bro, I got you. I just thought of this card. I had forgotten about it until I was on an episode of Commander Clash I was editing. This is from Throne of Eldraine. It's 2 mana. It's a wall, 0/4. That's Crashing Drawbridge, okay? It has Defender, and you can tap it to give all creatures haste until end of turn. So it's another way in this color combination that you can give all your stuff haste. And then
that's nice, I suppose, because
and it's a
I know
48
that
cent card. It's a lot cheaper than that enchantment you're
right. Yeah,
talking about.
that's quite a bit cheaper because that card's like what, $15 or something like
Something like
that.
that. That sounds right.
So okay, yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind.
So do you feel like Chatterfang is your strongest deck because it has all, because you don't really play a lot of combos. You have a couple combos in your decks, but you don't play a lot. Do you think that because of that Chatterfang is your strongest deck?
Potentially, yeah. If I can get to the combo pieces, I'd say it's probably my strongest deck. And even without the like getting to the combo pieces, I still feel like this is one of my stronger decks. Like I would probably say it's top 3 or top 2 decks of mine, if not my strongest, because of the infinite combos that I can get in the deck. And I like it a lot because squirrels.
Squirrels.
And just the idea of just a bunch of squirrels just wiping the floor with everyone is just hilarious. So
Oh, people haven't seen your squirrel sleeves yet. Steven has like these ultimate guard custom
beautiful,
sleeves that are squirrels. And
beautiful sleeves.
yeah, I'm excited for the guys for the viewers to see that. That we have an episode. I won't spoil the theme yet, but we have an episode that we're hoping to come out in like the fall, where Steven will get to finally show it off to the camera. The only other thing I want to ask about this deck is this is the second token deck we've talked about. Do you feel like having more than one token deck's unnecessary, or do you think that they're different enough that it doesn't really matter?
I think the idea of the decks are probably different enough. Because with Chatterfang, I mainly just want to make a bunch of squirrels. And so the tokens that I try to create in the deck that aren't the squirrels still benefit the deck from helping me at least try to get more squirrels. Whereas Adrix and Nev, it's more either just as many tokens as I can get or really big tokens.
Right.
I
Like
feel like
rampaging Baloth and crap.
uh-huh. So I feel like they're different enough and they play a lot of different cards that I feel like it's fine. And I think those are my only 2 token decks. So
I personally prefer playing against Chatterfang than Adrix and Nev because one, I like Demimel and Simic. I like Golgari as a color combination better. But also Chatterfang is maybe your strongest deck. You'll have to make sure that when we get to the other deck that you think is as strong, if not stronger, you'll need to make sure you let us know which one that is. I think this is maybe your strongest deck, but I like that because a lot of your decks are a very similar power level. So it's nice that you have one deck that really can, with the right draw, just win out of nowhere. Because you don't really run any tutors in it, right? Like you're not going for the combo. You're just like, if I get the pieces, I'm going to do it.
I have a couple cards in the deck that help, but not a lot.
Okay.
So for the most part, yeah, it is just like if I draw it, cool. If not, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of, if not my favorite deck of yours. All right. So next up, we have in alphabetical order, Jhoira, Ageless, Innovator. Tell us about this deck.
I mainly just made this deck for when we had the artifacts episode because I
Oh, is that where you play? I thought.
No, I'm wrong. When we did the random 2-color pair from the first season, and I was stuck with
that's right.
Is It, and I didn't want to do Is It, and I did consider doing the other Jhoira, the broken one,
The one
but I
from
didn't.
Dominaria. Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't want to. I wanted to do something different, and I was like, well, this is still kind of on theme with what I want to do, which is just casting big stuff for free. You're not casting.
It's not green,
it,
but it is a very Steven, just play big things. Yeah.
And so that's kind of the general idea. There's plenty of stuff in the deck that I can help untap Jhoira, so I can try to tap Jhoira multiple times per turn, so then I can cast the really big stuff. Or it's not casting, enter the battlefield or whatever. I feel like just artifacts in general are just so vaguely synergetic with each other. I feel like this deck is good for what it is. I feel like it could definitely be better, but because a lot of artifacts are just so generically good with other artifacts, a lot of the really good stuff that I could put in the deck are expensive, like really expensive cards that I don't want to buy. It's definitely not my favorite deck. I liked it more than I thought I would when I was building the deck. I don't know. It does fine for the most part, I guess.
Yeah, so you have the broken Jhoira, Weatherlight Captain. You have
It
in the
is
99 of the
in the
deck.
deck.
And the
Yes,
deck would
yes.
probably be stronger if you just made it the commander. So is it just a power level thing, like you just want to nerf it, or is it specifically because you're hoping to get these cheat the big artifacts into play? Like, what is your reason for
I'd
not
say
playing the
no,
stronger
that's
Jhoira?
because I don't. Well, and Jason already has that deck. I don't want to do exactly the same thing he's doing.
That's
And
fair.
a lot of the cards in my deck would have been different because you'd probably want to cast a lot of low costing or free stuff.
Right. Right.
And I'm not doing that with this Jhoira.
Cool. Well, so I like artifact decks. I've had several over the years. This is kind of your only artifact deck, right? Like you have the Necron precon or whatever, but
Yeah, but
you
I
don't
don't
really
count
ever
that. I
play
don't
it.
count that. Yeah.
Um so I kind of am on the lower end, but I think it's just because I don't really love Jhoira as a commander. But is there any like, I know we've talked about like says you don't really play your Necron deck. They've talked about maybe taking that deck apart and this deck apart and making a new commander deck, like mixing some of the pieces. Is that still something you're thinking about doing, or you're not sure?
I'm not actively thinking about doing it, but maybe at some point I'll get around to doing it because there are good cards in both decks, and it probably would be better if I combine the two, especially since I don't really play either deck that often.
Yeah.
So I'd probably eventually get around to it, maybe, but for now, it's not really on my mind.
All right. Next up is this your first deck? Jodah Archmage Eternal. Is this your first deck?
It kind of depends on how you look at it because the first deck the first commander deck I ever built was werewolves, which I have a werewolf deck now, but there have been so many good werewolves that have been introduced. Tovolar, obviously.
Tovolar's
So
just so much of a better
the
commander.
deck has just gone through so many changes. Like the general theme is obviously still the same. It's a werewolf Gruul deck. Gruul deck. Uh, and a lot of the cards are the same, but there's a lot of them that are different. Obviously, the commander.
So if we don't count
Joe,
that, then you would say Jodah's your
if
first
you
deck.
don't count that, then Jodah is the first commander deck I built.
Right on. So
And
tell us a little bit about what this deck is trying to do. I'm sensing a
yeah,
reoccurring theme in a lot of what your decks do.
no, really. I like Jodah because you can cast anything you want for Wooburg, and that's it. So there's a lot of just really big, scary creatures in the deck for the most part. Uh, the Eldrazi Titans are all in the deck. Um, Zakama, that's probably one of my favorite
Zakama is awesome.
just cards in general. I love Zakama. There's just Void Winnower, that card.
I
Everyone
hate
hates it
that
when I play that card.
card.
Yeah, understandable. But it's pretty good. Uh there's just so the main problem with that deck is I'm too cheap to go and buy better lands. But the deck usually
But isn't it almost an upside because you have the Mazes End combo? So you actually are
and I
literally running
won
guild gates.
with the Mazes End combo in Rainbow Week against you, technically.
Yes, this is technically
So
true. So do you
And
feel
getting to
like
play
that the gate plan is fine, or do you still wish you could just
there's one card specifically I want to put in Jodah that would make the Maze's End combo, like basically make me win the game instantly. Uh I don't remember what the card's called. It's a green sorcery, and like you just search for like 6 lands and you put them on the battlefield tapped. Like that's
I
it.
reshape the earth.
Yes, that's it. Reshape the earth. And so like that's it. I
It's
play
9
that. If I
mana.
play Yeah, but if I play that card and if I already have at least one of the other gates, I play it, it resolves, I win the game.
And with
So
Jodah out, it's only 5 mana. Yeah.
right. Yep. So that's I mean, it's not practical, but it's fun, I guess.
So it's like, it's like, well, do I spend the $6 to buy a reshape the earth, or do I spend a lot of money to upgrade the mana base? It's like pick your poison, which is
Reshape the
easier to
earth.
do. Yeah.
I've been meaning to get that card for a while and I just haven't gotten around to it. I haven't played Jodah in a while because Jodah was my only deck for a while. I had kind of just wanted to play other decks. So I don't play Jodah as often as I used to, but
I
it
feel
is
like it's been
still.
forever. I was telling you earlier this week that I was like, I'm kind of itching to play against Jodah. It's been a while.
I do think overall it's definitely one of my more powerful decks. I'd probably say my 3 most powerful decks, in no in particular order, is Adrix and Nev, Chatterfang, and Jodah.
Okay.
Probably Jodah. Probably, maybe if I'm not mistaken, has the biggest budget out of all of my decks, and that's mainly because of like the Eldrazi Titans.
So I remember when we were first getting into Commander specifically, this was kind of your only deck for a while. Like you said, you did have the Werewolf deck,
Yeah,
but the Commander was so bad that you didn't really play it very often. So Jodah, we just saw all the time. And I remember for that first, like, year or two that we were playing Commander, that we saw Jodah just all the freaking time. And not only did we get tired of it because we saw it so often, but it was one of the strongest decks in our play group. It was maybe the strongest deck in our play group for that first like couple years, because I was over here like, I'm gonna do zombie stuff with no combos. I'm just fair zombies. And Steven's like, that's cute, Emrakul. And so but I feel like we have so many more decks now that like we don't see Jodah as often as much as we used to, and the average power level of our play group is way higher than it used to be. So I actually, now that I haven't seen Jodah in a while, I'm kind of like, oh, well, I kind of miss playing against it, So
well, and I feel like Jodah can be so much more powerful than it already is. Again, because I haven't made upgrades in that deck in a while, and again, like with the lands, like if I can just, but I'm not like I don't really want to because money.
because money, yeah, that's fair. Well, speaking of super fun decks that I wish I saw more often, next up is Kwain. Uh, what is this word? Itinerant Meddler? Tell us about
Something
this
like that.
deck.
This deck is the ultimate enabler. You're gonna be
It
there's
is that.
so many cards. It's more or less a group hug deck. I basically try to just tap Kwain as often as I can. So there's a lot of stuff in the deck that I can tap this permanent to untap another permanent, and then all right, I'll just tap Kwain again, and so they're going to be gaining life and drawing cards. Everybody, or it's a May. Yeah, I mean, there's a good amount of board wipes in the deck, because we don't want things getting too crazy. But there's a lot of cards in the deck that also say give everyone the ability to have no maximum hand size, and they're drawing all of these cards. It gets pretty crazy. Another deck that I've never won with, I have been close like 2 times, and it's just never happened.
Yeah, so we've seen this once on the show, right? You played it on the very early in season 2. You played it on the least played color episode, because white was your least played color in season 1, and you hadn't played blue nearly as much as green as well, so you just built that. And I remember that I was so sad for the first like while that episode was out because it was not getting a lot of views. And I was like, that game was insane. It's gotten quite a bit. It's gotten, decent views now. But at the time, I was like, people, you got to watch this game, guys. This game was crazy because Steven was like, hey, yeah, everyone's playing pretty good decks, but what if I doubled how many cards you guys were drawing, right? And it's Steven's right. It is the ultimate enabler deck. It does lead to crazy games. What are the win cons in the deck? What's the plan to victory?
Nothing. I mill myself. Then I'm the real winner. No. There's oh my gosh, I can't remember what it's called. That one creature that it's like at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 13 cards in your hand, you win the game.
Triskaidekaphile.
Yeah. I last time we played that, I played with Kwain. I played that and I passed the turn and they're like, wait, how many cards do you have in your hand? And I had 13. And then someone just killed the creature before it got back to my upkeep, so that sucked.
And then don't you also have like Approach of the Second Sun?
I have Approach of the Second Sun, which I've gotten close to that one before. I've been able to cast it. It goes back in the deck. I draw a few more cards. There's been one time I drew it again, and so all I had to do was make it in my turn again.
Turn.
And nope, didn't happen. And then the Felidar Sovereign, I think, is the other one.
Oh yeah.
Which is like at the beginning of upkeep. If you have 40 more life, you win the game. That's pretty much it. So
These are all very jank win cons.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
So I enjoy playing against this deck. I'm always happy when you decide.
You're not really playing against the deck, though.
Yeah, the problem is it's a lot like my group hug deck, right? I love my group hug deck. It's one of my favorite decks, but I don't play it as much as I used to because it just creates these really long games because everyone has all their cards, so they're popping off. They have answers to other people popping off, so it creates really long, grindy games, which is fun. But if you want to play more than one game in a night, it's probably not the right deck to play. So, and of course, my group hug deck actually does have some win cons that are a little bit more reliable, like looping Spore Frog. So, I like Kwain, but it's not a deck I feel like I need to see all the time. All right, next up we have Rhonas the Indomitable. Is this still actually the commander, or did you go to the actual partner pair? Well, tell us about what the deck is and tell them what I mean by the partner pair.
It's just a generic green stoppy deck. That's it. A lot of mana ramp. A lot.
You naturally assemble Tron a lot.
I get Tron a lot. It's just a good green stuff deck. That's it. For a while, I had Rhonas the Innomitable as my commander, and I still do, and I still have it in the deck. But sometimes I'll switch it out with the partner pair. When we saw an uncommon, we saw it with two different partners, and I actually usually.
So that is Galanra and Halana are the partner.
So what I usually do is I actually switch Halana out and I put in Hawkball. Is that what it's called?
The green guy? Oh, Kamal.
Yes, Kamal.
Hawkball's
so I'll
the
either
Merfolk guy, I think.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yes, you're right. So I'll either run those two or I'll do Rhonas. And I just kind of go back and forth, but just whatever I'm feeling. I do think technically the partner pair is better, but then it's because of Kamal out. It like being there, it's like, oh, well, that's a good finisher.
Win con, yeah.
And that's his commander. Whereas Rhonas is just like generically just a good creature, and it can help give other creatures buffs and trample. And getting to be able to attack and block with Rhonas is relatively easy in the deck.
And you have the invocation, which makes it really hard to read.
And it's but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I agree it's hard to read, but it is Really cool.
So have we seen this 3 times on the show? Does that sound right?
When was the third?
So you played it.
We played it. Oh, yeah, Revenge. Okay, yeah. So yeah, 3 times. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the first time was.
Fif-
Oh, you built a
$50
$50 budget version of it.
Then I brought it back for the first Revenge Week, and
But
then
you just played the normal version of the deck.
right, and then again with the uncommon partner pair.
Yes. So we've kind of seen it 3 times. Where do you think this one sits? Like, as far as like, is it one of your favorite decks? Is it one of your stronger decks? Where do you think it kind of lies in those two
I
categories?
mean, I like it just because it is just the generically good green stompy deck. That's why I built the deck. And I think overall power level, it's within the upper half of my decks, I would say. I'd say it's very consistent compared to some of my other decks, which it should be, but just because it's a mono green deck. But I like that deck. It's pretty generic, but that's just
It's
what I
what
like
Steven
about
likes
it,
to
though.
do. It's like what Steven likes to do. Just play a bunch of big green spells. I actually, one thing I think is underrated about this deck is that it's cool that you can switch out the commanders and it still kind of does the same thing.
Yeah.
Like like that partner pair is what is it, Galanra and Kamal? Like that partner pair is technically probably a better commander than Rhonas, but like you like Rhonas, and that was from early-ish on in our commander experience was when and Ket came out, so there's like that nostalgia factor, and you can like switch the commander out, and your deck just still kind of more or less functions the same way.
Yeah. Yep.
I think playing against it is a little awkward, just because it's kind of just a good stuff deck. I don't have like any specific hate pieces. I'm just like, well, what do I do? Run land destruction? What do I do? Just run all of my board wipes, Like there's not like anything specific I can do to try to stop you, because you're just gonna snowball if you get the chance, So playing against this is a little challenging just from a strategic standpoint. It is a fairly strong deck though. So it's cool. It's cool. I don't mind playing against it every now and then though, but there are a lot of games where you just kind of run away with it, and it's scaly. Green do be green. I really do think green is probably the strongest color in Commander. All right, next up is Shadrix Silverquill. I'm glad we're talking about this because this is one that someone in our Discord specifically wanted to hear you talk about. So tell us a little bit about your Shadrix Silverquill deck.
It kind of works almost like a group hug deck, but putting myself a little more ahead.
It's a little more aggressive.
So like yeah, and I just think Shadrix is just a really unique card, and I was just like, you know what? Why not? It's a pretty cool deck. I basically originally I took Shadrix and I took that one precon from, was it Strixhaven?
Yep. The Orzhov Strixhaven
right.
precon.
So that's what I basically just switched the commander out. Boom, that's the deck, and I've just made a lot of changes here and there. It's kind of hard to have a focus for the deck because I know some people will use it kind of more like a Voltron deck.
I have a Shadrix deck on Magic Online, and it's Voltron. It's hilariously good.
So there have been plenty of times where I've killed people with commander damage with Shadrix, but that's not like the purpose of the deck. I want to focus a lot more into like the helping everyone out, but helping me more than how much I help the others out.
You can use those modes to help you more anyways, even if you have to target another player. Like if you're like, hey, if I give you a card, use that card to hurt that other guy, or if I give you a buff, attack that guy. Don't attack me. So you can still use it politically, even if you have to give those modes to other people.
Which of course I have to. I don't have to use the mode on myself. I just always do it.
Yeah. So I really like this deck because it has a lot of the elements that I like in like group hug decks, and you're creating alliances. It's leaning into the multiplayer aspect of Commander, right? Like if we're gonna be here and play a multiplayer format, let's really lean into the multiplayer aspect of it. And Shadrix does a great job of that as a commander, and then your 99 supports it fairly well. I'm just glad that you have put so much time and energy into upgrading it, because I don't think we saw it in season 1, if I remember correctly. But
I
then
think the only time you played it
I played it on the
when,
episode
yeah,
where we all played your decks, and I remember it
and that was it.
kind of sucked. I remember because it was like the first, more or less, first draft of the deck, and it just kind of stunk. And I was like, well, I want to do cool things, but I just keep drawing basic planes and didn't do anything. But we've seen it twice in this season, right? You'd played it on the $100 budget episode in season 2, and then you brought it back for Revenge Week for season 2. And it's way better now. Like, you've put a lot of energy into making the deck more consistent and have other cards that are political, but always going to put you a little bit more ahead. So it has a lot of the randomness and the multiplayer stuff that I like for Commander, but it's a big flyer with double strike. So you actually have a real win con, other like Kwain, which is like, well, maybe I'll draw my approach to the second sun, and hopefully it doesn't get countered. So,
Yep.
so Shadrix is actually like a real win con. So I would put this in the top 5 of your decks as far as like my favorite to play against. I mean, that's why I chose it. In the episode where we all played your decks. That's why I chose it. And I think the other guys feel the same way. So if you want to see it have a really good game, check out the season 2 Revenge Week, which I believe at the time you're seeing this is still the newest episode of our show, because I don't think the Modern Horizons 3 episode is out yet. All right, we have a couple more to go through. Tell us about your Sir Gwyn deck.
Oh yeah, so that was the deck you made me for this last Christmas here.
Yes, we did Secret Santa this time. Everyone drew a name, built a deck for the person they drew. I drew you, and this is the deck I built you.
Yeah, so you just kind of did something I'm somewhat familiar with, which is a tribal deck. It has a lot of knights in it, but something I'm also wasn't familiar with, which is equipments.
I also chose it because I knew
So
you were wanting another 3-color deck. So
yeah,
that was part of why I did this one as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I wanted it to be a little familiar to you, but also have a couple things that would put you a little out of your comfort zone.
yeah. I'm not convinced the deck is that good though, because I've never won with it. I mean, I haven't gone on my way to upgrade it a lot.
Yeah,
So
because
it
keep in
is,
mind for the Christmas episodes, we have a $50 budget.
yeah.
So
So
there's
I
only so
didn't,
much I can't put like the sort of fire and ice and crap like that in there.
yeah. And kind of the same thing with artifacts just being generically good because they're colorless. A lot of the really, really good equipments are expensive. So
Yeah.
I
Like
mean, the deck itself,
I would put Shadow Spear in your deck, but that would be like half of the budget.
yeah. Part of the issue with this deck is if you get rid of Sir Gwyn's already a 6-mana commander, and if you get rid of Sir Gwyn, my deck's just not gonna do that good.
So I don't know how much you've played it. I know you've played it a couple times since we did the Christmas episode. I know I've seen it at least a couple times. What do you actually think about the deck? Like, do you enjoy playing it? Did I have a good pick for you? Or do you think it's just it would need quite a bit more upgrades before you could really judge it?
To judge it, not really, because like the general idea of the deck I like. I think it is cool. It is something that's a little different, but something I'm also kind of familiar with. I think the deck won't really be that good until a lot of upgrades are made. I just feel like it's just not that powerful right now.
I will say that I'm glad I built this deck for you, because I felt like it checked a lot of the boxes of what I wanted to help push you towards. Oh, look, a
Who
cat.
said you who said you could be up here, sir? Get
Um,
down.
but I will say that since the Christmas episodes have a $50 budget, having a 3-color deck that didn't have green was probably not the move, because you don't have like, you're not, the main thing for me is like, I know your land base is kind of sus. Like, I have a lot of like the crappy fetchable lands because you have like Knight of the White Orchid and crap, but The land base on a budget is kind of sus when you don't have green to help you with like your far seeks and your crap like that. So that I think $50 budget non-green 3-color deck was probably a mistake. But overall, I actually do think it's a pretty cool commander, and it's a cool
Yeah,
deck.
I agree.
I like equipment decks because it's kind of Voltron-y too. So I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so we have 2 more decks to go through. We've hinted at this one. Tell us a little bit more about.
Oh my
No,
gosh.
Steven fell off the face of the earth.
Memphis, quit being stupid. Okay.
So Steven, tell us about your Tovolar deck.
Okay, so this was what I mean, in regards of getting into Magic, werewolves was one of the main things that like drew my attention. Because we started playing around the time of Shadows over Innistrad, Eldritch Moon. And there was a good amount of wolves and werewolves. Compared to the wolves and werewolves we see now, the ones from when we started playing mostly suck. But I still like the idea of the werewolves to transform and just the overall just theme from those sets in general. Tovolar's a lot better than Ulrich. Like way better.
It's not even close.
Yeah. Ulrich's still in the deck, actually. Like I still feel like he's good enough to be in the deck, but as the commander, no. Not even close.
Well, so I'm happy for you, but I don't like this card. I don't like
Tovolar?
that. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that there are so many commanders nowadays in the modern era of let's design stuff specifically for commander and not care about the real formats, like in that sense, it's like here's a 3-mana thing that says do the thing, draw cards. Like it's very like there's no interpretation. It's like, yes, this is wolves and werewolves, and there's no other way to build this, which is kind of fine, but like there's no creative endeavor. You're just like, all right, I'm just gonna grab the best werewolves, and
Well,
then
actually,
it's a self-propellant engine because it's drawing cards, and kind of a lot at that. So I don't love it. And then day night is such a nightmare to keep track of.
well, that's true. But it's also the best way to do werewolves that have
You
been
think like
in.
you like it better than like Innistrad and Shadows over Innistrad,
Yeah,
like the old
yeah,
Innistrad sets? You
where
think
they
it's better?
transform naturally instead of having to pay mana to do it,
Well,
or like
that's only in like Eldritch Moon, right? Like in original Innistrad, it's like
right.
it's kind of the same thing as day night, but it's not literally day night.
It's
In
not
like
as good. It's like
like
day and night,
original
but not as
Innistrad.
good as day and night.
Yeah. So you
And
actually
then
prefer it?
yeah. I admit it's weird keeping track of it, but it's definitely better. And
Yeah, but then you play it, and then if you die, we technically have to keep track of day night for the rest of the game in case one of us plays a day night card, which we probably won't. But
well,
based on the
don't kill
rules of
me
the game, we
first
have
then.
to. But technically, we have to keep track of it. It's all
No,
right.
I really like this deck. I just like the wolf and werewolf's energy and
You really like
like
tribal decks, and
having a werewolf that is like actually a good commander. And I think even Jason and I's Tovolar decks are very different. We play there are some cards here and there that like stay the same, but you look at our deck list and they're pretty different. I think for the most part, I focus more on the werewolf synergy, and Jason focuses more on like
just aggro.
stuff that like just like general aggro, like I'm gonna attack you and then I'm gonna attack you again and then I'm gonna attack you again, or like just buffing up all his creatures, which I have some of that kind of stuff, but he tends to focus more on that, just the general Gruul aggro stuff, and I tend to focus more on the werewolf synergy kind of stuff.
Do you know how many times we've seen this how many times we've seen it on the show? I feel like it's been a lot.
A lot.
So you played it in the test game. So our first commander gameplay, Upkeep episode 0. You
That's
played it
the
there.
only time it's won.
You played it on the tribal episode.
Yeah.
And then you played it. Jason's played his I think twice on the show too. So we've gotten a lot of Tovolar action. And then I feel like there's one more. Oh, the Halloween episode. You played it.
And then there was oh no, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And then there's also a video where they 1v1 Jason versus Steven with their Tovolar decks.
And then Jason was a sore loser, and he's like, "No, wait, let's do 3 out of 5."
Yeah. I rewatched that
See, because
recently
here's the
because
thing:
I kind of miss doing 1v1 stuff. I kind of want to do more, so I went back and watched that. It's actually a good
yeah,
video. It's a good video.
No, it's a fun watch.
It also ended up getting better views than I thought. Because when we made it at first, it got like 200 views, 300 views. And I was like, well, that's not worth doing again. But now it's gotten, as many views as an episode of Upkeep would normally get. So, yeah. So I also think that this is also probably a fairly strong deck. I think the green shell is just generically strong. And then it's aggro, which is kind of nice because you can help close out the games. And then red gives you access to like board wipes and stuff. So I actually don't really love Tovolar as a commander, but I'm happy you're happy.
Thanks.
So I guess we did it. I remember we went earlier in the video.
That is something I want, is to just at some point getting more werewolf commanders that are still good, and that you can still like say if you didn't want to do Tovolar, like here's one or two other options, and all you got to do is switch them around. But Tovolar is just like by far the best, but so I would like to see more werewolf commanders that are just good. Not necessarily as good or better, not necessarily better than Tovolar, but just good enough where like if you wanted to mix it up a little bit, you can do it.
I wonder if it's like the Edgar Markov problem though, where like the best commander for vampires is Edgar Markov, and he's so much better than all the other options that like you're just going to keep playing Edgar Markov because all the other vampire options aren't as good. So I feel like, we probably could they would have to push it in a different direction. Like they would have to be like, here's werewolves that specifically cares about like the Eldritch Moon ones, right? Where you have to pay mana. Like make one that's very, very specific on like what kinds of wolves or werewolves you would play. I think that's how they would have to do it, is really narrow down and make it more specific and not broad. But even then, Tovolar is probably still just better. So I don't know how they would do it.
Probably just something similar to that at Tovolar, where is just generally good, because that's probably what the problem with the vampires is. It's that like Edgar Markov is just by far the best. If you make another vampire that's maybe at least roughly equally as good as Edgar Markov, then there's your other option. Yeah. If you make something that's not as good, people aren't going to play it as much.
All right, so we got one more commander deck to talk about today. I think this is your newest deck. This is your Xolatoyac, the Smiling Flood deck. Tell us about this one.
Well, first of all, I love him.
Look at his sweet little face.
Yeah. I like axolotls a lot. And so when I saw him, I was like, I really want to build a deck with them, actually. So the idea of well, first of all, it's a Simic deck, okay? Everybody calm down. The idea is it's kind of more or less a counter deck. Xolatoyac just wants to untap on my end step, just anything with a counter on it, and untaps. That's the general purpose of the deck. And because I get to put flood counters on my lands, then I could untap those. And then so the idea is to just play stuff that puts counters on like my creatures, attack with my creatures. Then on my end step, I'll untap all those creatures again that has the counters on them and all the lands, and then just be able to play stuff at instant speed.
Like your counter spells.
Taps, with the things that I just untapped. So it's a pretty fun deck.
I'm always surprised at how strong this is, because you kind of just put it together with like crap that was in your collection and our community bin. Like you haven't really spent any money building it, right? Like you just kind of built
Not
it with
really.
cards that were
I kind of just
around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very strong. I remember there's a game that we played at Tommy's apartment where you killed me on like turn 5 or something, because you're just like, oh, look how big my creatures got. Whoops, killed them. I'm always surprised at how strong it is, and it's cool. And look at his face. He's a nice guy. This is actually
nice
I made a short for the channel when Lost Caverns of Ixalan was the newest set, saying that this was my favorite commander from the set. I think it's really cool. There's a lot of I like that it's a little more open ended. Like the flood counter thing.
There are many ways you can take this, because it's the flood counter's right, but like it also just benefits kind of any counters at all. Mm-hmm. So there's multiple ways you can take this with whatever kind of counters. I tend to have focus a lot on the no surprise, buffing up my creatures with +1/+1 counters. But
that might be the strongest way to do it. And
yeah,
it's one of the more direct ways. Like it's obvious that that's a thing you can do with it. Like you make your plants from Avenger of Zendikar really big or whatever.
Yeah, or even with the precon that it came in, like with the merfolks, like they're going to be just all the stuff that they do, like they're going to be getting counters and stuff anyway. So,
and you played the merfolk deck on our Ixalan episode, right?
Yeah, I believe you
did
killed
Xolatoyac get
Xolatoyac when I played
cast?
it. Yeah, I think you killed him, or
I
someone
wasn't
did.
in that game. I wasn't in that game.
Somebody killed him. I remember it was rude. It was very rude. I was offended.
I like this deck. It would be interesting to see him back to back or closer together because I haven't played against Adrix and Nev in a long time. But I feel like between your two Simic decks, I probably prefer playing against this one. But I'm not sure. It's actually kind of harder to play against because your creatures get so big so fast, and then you're gonna have the mana up to like keep up your heroic intervention or your counter spell or whatever. So it's actually kind of harder to play against this deck. But I don't know. It's cool. I dig it. It'll be interesting to see how it kind of falls amongst your other decks because I've only played against it probably 3 or 4 times.
I've only played like 3 or 4. Yeah, I've only played like 3 or 4 games with it.
I'm always surprised at as how well it performs though. So it'll be interesting to see if it ends up being like, especially when you upgrade it, if it ends up being one of your stronger decks or what.
It's already won like 3 out of 4 games I've played with it. So
oh really? Oh, maybe it is already one of your better decks.
It was a high win percentage till I lost that 4th game, but because I remember the first 3 games I played with it, I won with it.
I don't know if I had realized.
So it's pretty good. Just considering,
imagine if you actually spend time and money upgrading it. What it'll be. Yeah. No, Simic do be Simicin, dog.
That's also true. But I feel like I justified, because I remember when I was making the deck, I was like, do I really need another Simic deck? But I feel like both decks are very different. Like they're the goal for these decks and just the cards that other cards that I'm running in the deck are just so different that it's like, I feel like, although it's like, oh, Simic be Simicking, but it's like they're doing pretty different things.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like your Chatterfang and your Lysaga deck. Like, yeah, they're both Golgari decks, but they're not doing the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like one's a token deck and one's a sacrifice deck. Which I guess there's obviously going to be cards that you play in both, but the overall theme's different enough that it's kind of worth it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so that is all of Steven's commander decks. Steven, is there a specific deck that you maybe all of these have been on the show, right? Other than Chatterfang, kind of Xolatoyac hasn't been on the show.
Yeah, so Xolatoyac has not been on the show yet. And Chatterfang has not been on. But I think the rest have been on the channel. So I definitely want the opportunity to bring both. Chatterfang will absolutely make an appearance this season. Xolatoyac, most likely, especially when we have Simic week, 5-player Simic.
Well, we're not doing 5-player. I'll have to quit. So we are gonna have an episode where everyone plays a Simic deck. Have you decided if you're playing Xolatoyac or Adrix and Nev, or you're not sure?
I'm actually not sure. A part of me wants to do Adrix and Nev just because it's been so long since we've seen it on the channel, but also I have a new deck that we haven't seen at all yet. But I know that there's at least one other game where it's like I could pretty much choose whatever I want. So I might just do Xolatoyac for that. But I don't know. Okay. I haven't decided yet.
Okay, cool. Well, hopefully we get the we'll foresee the viewers. You will for sure get to see Chatterfang in the nearest future, and then hopefully you can see Xolatoyac soon as well. All right. Well, Steven, thanks for hopping on this episode of the podcast to talk about your decks. Guys, let us know in the comments. Well, first off, wish Steven a happy birthday. His birthday, I believe, is the day after this episode is coming out. And, if you want to see some of these decks in action, go check out our Commander gameplay series, Upkeep. See if there's any episodes you might have missed. Specifically, check out the one from his birthday last year where we played, all 4 of us played one of his decks. And let us know in the comments also what maybe your favorite decks are of Steven's or yeah, that would be cool to see. Any last words before we sign off, Steven?
No, I don't got nothing.
You're
I don't
always so well spoken and so well. You articulate your thoughts so well.
know. What thoughts?
All right, guys. We'll see you next week for another episode of the podcast. Bye.
Bye.